Now at 6:30, for months, the historic Armory in Midtown has sat empty. The former entertainment complex was recently eyed as a potential data center, but that plan is on hold for now due to the mayor's executive order last week. Now, that order requires developers who want to open data centers to answer certain questions before they can set up shop. So I'm joined now by Alderman Michael Browning. He represents residents in the 9th Ward, which is just west of the Armory. Michael, thank you for being here. Let's first ask about your constituents. What have they expressed to you about the potential of a data center going into the Armory?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, first of all. I have heard loud and clear from my constituents that they are concerned about specifically this piece of land being used for this type of development. The city has made tremendous progress over the year connecting neighborhoods. We recently passed a new strategic land use plan that calls for a connected, walkable, mixed-use type of city. And this proposal would really create a dead space that I think people feel is not appropriate for the path and the future of our city.
Data centers do exist in the city of St. Louis. If this location isn't appropriate, according to your constituents and yourself, where else could those data centers expand in the city of St. Louis that would be appropriate?
I think that's something that we need to figure out with our planning experts, but I've heard of data centers existing in multi-story, high-rise buildings where a couple floors of the data center, or somewhere where it's not as large of a footprint as the Armory is. I think there's certainly room to have data centers in St. Louis, but I think those decisions should be made thoughtfully with the community in mind.
When it talks about a recent Bloomberg article, that's what I want to reference here, it shows electricity costs soared by 267% in places where data centers are located. So does St. Louis have a plan to shield residents from those pretty high costs?
Unfortunately, we can't, because Republicans in Jefferson City passed a law that allows the electrical companies to pass on the cost of producing new electricity to consumers. So your bill could go up because someone else is demanding a lot of electricity.
Is that a concern also that your constituents have expressed about those potential for those higher costs?
Absolutely. There's a lot that we're finding out about data centers. This is a relatively new use that's spreading across cities across the country. And we have an opportunity, because we're in the middle of updating our zoning code, to really tackle this head on and put in place common sense regulations that still allow business in the city, but do protect our residents and our plans for our future.
Let's backtrack and talk about the Armory building in itself. I mean, such a prime location there in Midtown, right off of 64. You got the Foundry right across the interstate. What would you like to see, or maybe even what you've heard from residents of what that space could look like and be used for in the future?
Absolutely. Well, it's a big building with a storied history, and you're right. If you look to the north, you've got the successful Foundry development. If you look to the south, you've got the SSM Medical Complex. To the west, you've got Cortex, which has been doing really well, adding lots of jobs, and the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood with the Grove Entertainment District. So you've got a lot going on in that area. What's missing is those connections. So I think the original use of the Armory as the city's largest bar was a creative use, and yet that building is so big, it kind of speaks to the need for multiple uses within it. So what I'd like to see is not see it dedicated to one entire use like a data center, but to see sort of a mixed use approach, and that's actually exactly what our strategic land use plan calls for.
Do you think there needs to be a connection between the Foundry and the Armory, whatever it exists, whether that be I don't know, a bridge or whatever that might look like? There needs to be some connection point?
There is the Spring Viaduct, which existed at one point in time and is planned for the future. That is a crucial connection, because it's not just about connecting the Foundry with the Armory, it's about connecting the Grand Metrolink station, which sits immediately to the east of this site, with the Foundry as well. Getting the trestle bridge built over to connect the Foundry to the Brickline Greenway. We have a lot of plans that are going to create this really multimodal, connected, walkable area, but creating a dead space where it's a building full of loud machines and minimal employees is not the kind of future we're imagining for our city.
When development as a whole, there's always hurdles to get through. You have some in the city of St. Louis who might say, oh, we don't need new buildings in the city of St. Louis. We need to preserve the historic buildings that we have. I mean, what would you say to those who are very just kind of salute on saying, hey, the preservation is the key, not necessarily the new buildings?
You know, brick is what makes St. Louis special. We used to produce so much brick that you can find it in cities across the country. But we also need to make room for new things and need to understand that different uses require different types of buildings. So I think it's about having a diversity of buildings, recognizing when we need to preserve something really special, maybe something that a lot of artistry went into, but also leave room to build modern buildings that people want to move to. I think especially when it comes to housing, we need to talk about a diversity of housing so that no matter what you're looking for, you can find it in St. Louis City.
All right, Michael, really appreciate your time. Thanks for the combo.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Well.